Welcome to Growing E-commerce. I'm your host, Mike Ryan of Smarter E-commerce. Today I'm joined by Tim Ayton of Range Leather. Tim is the Chief Operating Officer at Range, where in a classic startup or scale-up fashion, he wears a lot of hats. That's everything from paid and owned media channels, to product merchandising, to managing shipping teams and wholesale teams. So, in all that context, we discuss meta advertising, Facebook in particular. How's life looking post iOS 14? What's Tim's approach to blended ROAS, also known as marketing efficiency ratio? What does he think of new features and campaign types? And then we move on from marketing. Well, we discuss the interplay of marketing and operations, that pacing and relationship between advertising and fulfillment, how that plays out for people and profitability. And we dig into the wholesale side a bit too, where Tim schools me in wholesale marketplaces. All right, let's get into it. All right, so Tim, thank you for joining us today. Why don't you get us started with a quick introduction? What are your skills? What themes interest you?
Yeah, so I'm COO of Range Leather out here in Laramie, Wyoming. My career's been primarily built in growth marketing and paid and retention, kind of that whole side of business. But recently with Range, it's been leaning more ops. I'd say I'm interested in both sides, but it's been really fun to have both levers on both sides. I think I'm, in terms of most interested in right now, it's learning about leadership, it's learning about team management, it's learning about like optimizing COGS and production and how do logistics work, and how does that play against marketing or with marketing, has been really fun to dive into recently.
Yeah, that's really cool. I always love that intersection. And I mean, for me, I started like in an operations background, then I went into a marketing background. So we're on like opposite trajectories there. So that'll be cool to talk about. I definitely want to ask you about both of those things. Um, Maybe speaking of trajectories, maybe you can bring us up to speed a little bit on Range too. I'm going to try to not make too many like wild West jokes or anything like that.
It's
Um,
justified.
yeah. But I mean, seriously, leather goods, Wyoming. I mean, it's just beautiful picture together there. But this business had kind of a classic growth trajectory. What you often think of with like direct to consumer brands are these kind of insurgent startup brands from in a living room, in a garage, and then onto a small shop. So where is the business now? Kind of what size are you at? Where did you join? And what's next?
Yeah, so yeah, I totally had that living room to building. I think we're around 30, 35 team, most of that being crafters, because we make everything here. Like
Yeah.
physically, people are making stuff. So that's the majority of our staff. And then we have some, me, some admin staff, and then, managers to keep everybody going smoothly. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. I met Kyle years ago, actually before Range was even a thing. And he ran a Kickstarter for one of the wallets way back in the day. And then I was just like a high school kid at that point, at college, maybe somewhere around there. So I actually helped him sew like the first few wallets for the Kickstarter. And then we kind of parted ways, stayed in touch. And Range grew a ton here in Laramie. I was still back in Spokane where we met. And then I went into marketing, and we kind of came back together when he wanted to put the throttle down on sales, and thought maybe advertising we could test that out. So he brought me in, and then we did that for a while. And then he brought me here to Laramie. He convinced me to move. And so now I'm in-house. And yeah, so kind of the future of Range, the goal is kind of basically, a lot of brands, the goal is like build fast, make a ton of rev and sell, right? Like that's kind of the dream for any D2C brand. We're basically the opposite of that. It's kind of grow slow and become almost the Magnolia of Laramie. Like Magnolia's got they have all kinds of different revenue streams in Waco physically, and they take their like one of the biggest employers in Waco. That's kind of our goal in Laramie with Range, is to have leather, yes, but move into coffee next, move into all kinds of different product categories, and continue to just expand physically and super profitably. So that's kind of, that would be the dream. We'll see where we land, and how that takes off in the next, 2, 3, 4, 10 years. But that's the goal.
That's really cool. I mean, I love that connection you have back to the early roots of the company on a Kickstarter. That's super cool. And also that kind of community vision where you're talking about how, Magnolia is this big employer in Waco and what that could look like for you all. It's really interesting, this idea of category expansion too, because I mean, right now you've got what? You've got like a leather supplier, a single leather supplier. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Horween does all their leather.
Mm-hmm. And so then you must have some other suppliers for like, I don't know, metals,
hardware.
And stuff. Yeah, hardware. Yeah. But then still, like it sounds to me like a relatively stripped down or simple supply chain. But that could change a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing and a challenge at the same time. Like Horween is great. We get the highest quality leather from them. They've been good to us on relationship and price. The challenge is planning, essentially, from them and from us, knowing how much we need, knowing how much we can get from them. Hardware is a whole different beast just because of both leather and hardware are heavy. So they cost a ton to ship. They take a while to move around. But those are kind of it's like the simple, like, that's all we got to worry about. And if we can run our projection algorithms, accurately, then we shouldn't run into an issue, which has been a development. And then coffee, it's just bringing in the beans from our farm, and we'll roast it here. Like, we've got a big roaster that we're working with. So, it's even expanding product categories. We aren't necessarily expanding a ton of sources. We do have hats too, but that's pretty much one supplier. So yeah, I mean, we're like a handful of suppliers across all of our products across multiple categories. So it's definitely efficient that way.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, so we just started talking about operations here a little bit already, but I mean, I had a look at your job description, like the way as you've got set up on LinkedIn there, and I mean, I was really impressed because you've got a ton of things going on. You got a lot on your plate, from like lots of responsibilities under kind of a marketing umbrella, lots of responsibilities under kind of like a e-commerce or web shop umbrella, and a lot going on under operations too. So, what's that like for you? Can you walk us through a day in the life, or like a week in the life?
Yeah, totally. Pretty much, I try to stay pretty segmented. Like, I split my days kind of a thing. I have like a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 being all the recurring stuff that has to get done in a day, which is typically like I check in with my team because I've got 5-ish plus direct reports. So I go and make sure everybody's good. Go with shipping team. How are you feeling? What do you need? Go to my creative team. How are you feeling? What are your questions on these projects? Team check-ins. I'm still doing the heavy lifting on the customer service side. So I'll burn through all the tickets and make sure all the customers are taken care of that way. That connects to shipping a lot of times, like wrong address, wrong product, help solve the shipping fires there. And then I usually jump into paid and do some buying because that's been my core skill set. So I'll jump in there, throw some new ads in, some new stuff out, see what results from the last few weeks have been, and do that. And then the second half of my day, which isn't usually half, it's the first part is pretty quick. But then I try to get into project deep work time on the bigger stuff, which is like, do we, like this time of year, it's like crank out all the holiday emails, or, throughout the year, it can be different things. Like I want to focus on updating our PDPs, or I'll just pick, I have a pretty dialed in kind of project manager for myself in Notion. So that kind of prioritizes things for me. So I just kind of work down my project list in that deep work time from there. And I've kind of trained my team. Like they can obviously come and help, like get help from me anytime, but they've kind of learned that like the beginning of the day, let's get everything worked out. And then the back half of the day, let's all just grind kind of a thing. So that's been working so far.
Mhm.
And yeah, well, eventually the goal is to have a little bit more of a team. So it'll probably become, less deep work time and more team check-in time as we progress. But that's totally fine with me.
Yeah, definitely. People management, you always imagine like, I don't know what percentage of the time that will be and that versus what percentage of the time it is. People management can get big for sure. Um, but yeah, that sounds really great. I mean, let's zoom in on that paid topic that you mentioned. Because actually the way we got connected, I was looking for somebody to school me in Facebook a little bit. Personally, I'm deeper into Google Ads. I know that ecosystem better. I don't personally know the Facebook ecosystem as well, and Meta at large. So I don't know. Before we dive in Facebook, like, what are your key channels at Range and why? Is it most of your costs running through Meta channels, or are you spending a lot on Google Ads? How does that all look for you? What's your mix?
Yeah, it's pretty much all Facebook and Google.
Mhm.
Vast majority of Facebook. Again, I mean, mostly because that was my bread and butter from years ago, and that's kind of what carried the range, like the D2C segment of the business. And then I brought in Google like 2 years ago, when I had some more resources at the agency to learn from, and then I can kind of run it on my own. But it's been a small channel, and that's been my biggest learning category is the Google side, but
Mhm.
Facebook's been the majority. And then also just outside of paid, a big emphasis on email and SMS has been big for Range for um, just return customer rate and better conversion rate and all that stuff. So I think, Facebook, Google, and retention are kind of the big three for us right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, what kind of like sort of what are your expectations of Facebook versus Google? How do you see them in kind of in relation to each other?
Yeah. I mean, so I've been kind of the relationship between the two I'm learning. I definitely don't like, you think of interruption versus like someone searching for a specific thing or even branded or things like that. The customer experience, the path is going to be very different. So for Google, it's kind of one thing I did notice a while back. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I had actually shut Facebook completely off for Range for
Mhm.
like 5 days just to see what would happen. But I left Google on. And when Facebook for Range, when Facebook got turned off, Google took a huge dive too.
Mhm.
And so from my experience, like with the setup we have in Google, which is very acquisition forward, those two, it's just kind of like icing on the cake with Facebook doing the heavy lifting and Google adding and yeah, just adding to that side of it. But yeah, Facebook's been kind of the main place to test and grow. And um, like I said, it's just kind of been where my focus has been because it's comfortable and I kind of know what to do with it. And coming out of the agency world into a brand, there's just so much more focus I can have toward testing and um, how to structure the campaigns and all that. So
Mhm.
that's kind of been the strategy thus far.
That's a really interesting effect that you described there. So, I mean, what do you think happened? That basically, like, Facebook is doing the lifting to kind of generate the demand, and then later on, maybe those people aren't clicking and converting always from the Facebook ads, but then a couple days, a week later, they're going to go ahead and make like a branded search or a product search on Google, and Google sort of harvesting the fruit. Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. And it was mostly, I mean, like at the time, this was pre forced PMAX. So I believe it was all smart shopping,
Mhm.
pretty much for us. So it would make sense that like, again, it's a very direct response forward kind of goal with Google, which isn't always the case. You want, like, from my understanding, you want a breadth of objectives with across the different campaigns. But for us, it was just like all DR, even on Google. So I think that definitely directly related when it was like we turned the main faucet off, then that same audience, so that the halo effect that Google was capturing wasn't there anymore. So it was just left with whoever, like, I'm not sure how that affects the competition algo, but it seemed to have a pretty big effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, let's stick a pin in the topic about like PMAX and smart shopping and stuff, because I want to come back to a related topic there in a sec. But first, let's talk about like the Facebook campaigns and the Meta campaigns in the face of iOS 14 and the measurement crisis. Like, what was your kind of lived experience for that at Range? Was that a big deal for you, as so many people report, or how did it work out for you?
Yeah, so for Range, it actually wasn't that big a deal. It is a big deal for a lot of brands that were depending on their data stack to do decision making, which we are too. But mine was a lot simpler. Like, before, kind of like, I guess right after iOS 14, we just took a step back, and I basically built like a Google sheet that was super simple. It's like Shopify rev, Shopify new customer rev, Facebook spend, Google spend, and then orders per day, just to take a look at that, and run the like blended ROAS and new customer ROAS off of those numbers, like super high level, no specific campaigns, just like day to day, loosely, where are we at? And honestly, that's how I've been running the business since. What I do now is I basically take that kind of proxy number. I look at like, what is Facebook reporting in terms of ROAS, and then what am I getting in terms of new customer ROAS with that, with the Shopify new customer rev and all the spends. And usually I get some kind of multiplier, like let's say it's like 1.5, and I'll make a Facebook custom column that's like new customer ROAS, and I'll plug in, take the Facebook ROAS of this campaign, multiply it by 1.5, and that's loosely what we can estimate this campaign will be in practice. And that's the number I've been buying off of. So, and then I take it even a step further myself with having a blended ROAS by product, because I have our COGS really dialed in on the ops side. So I can see like what we have to have for each product to break even. And then for me, and then I have campaigns by product. So I can look at the new customer ROAS by product. And as long as we're above break even, I'm good to go, good to scale. So that's like a quick rundown of how I have been buying with the new. I do have Triple Whale as well. We're finding challenges with bringing it, like it brings in fair sales for wholesale, which is messing with my metrics. So we're working that out. But that can be a helpful tool as well. I just have been doing my copy paste manual 5-second system for so long. It's just, second nature now to do it that way.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we'll get back to wholesale later, which you just mentioned, but I'm curious too about like this product level reporting and so on. How does that work at Range? Have you got some hero products, or do you see that you've got a lot of kind of distributed interest in a lot of products, or how's it look for you guys?
Yeah, we kind of have two. I mean, well, not two. We have like definitely a bestseller by category. So, hats, it's like the American flag hat outpaces every other hat by like 4 times. The Belford wallet, for instance, outpaces all the rest of them by at least 2x. Earrings are super seasonal. That's just something I know, where it's like holiday season, they are flying. We can't keep them like on the shelf at all. And then they sell very few in like kind of early spring. And so, yeah, we do have those, and like watch bands as a category has been big. So when it comes to ads, I definitely lean into that. That's something that has been a pattern across the years of buying for me. Is it's just easier to start with a hero product. This is something Cody Plofker was we were talking about too on Mentor Pass one time, where it's easier to take something that works in terms of sales and in terms of customers like this, they're buying this, it's the most popular, lean into that. And you're already halfway there in terms of success, and you just got to find the right creative, the hooks, the whatever to push it across the line there. And there's so much scale with those. It's not worth spinning your wheels on something on a product that is tough to sell anyway. When you could scale your best sellers, 3, 4, 5 times more than you think before you even have to touch those other ones. And you can kind of let the data on those move you toward other products. Like for instance, an example for us is like the American flag hat was so popular. We built a We the People hat. Like we designed like the script font that it had, and because it's kind of in the same realm, of like the patriotic style product, and it immediately took off and became like a top 10 hat, which we have tons of hat SKUs. So to go from 0 to top 10 SKUs in like 2 months or so was nuts. So that's kind of where that can totally help too. And now I can push that hat a little harder, even though it's not the best seller. It's along the same lines. So that's been key for us as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just, out of curiosity, you feel like, did that one eat into then revenue or sales on your classic US flag hat, or do you feel like it's just on top?
No, it actually, what happened was a lot of people bought both at the same time. So it just added AOV. And went from 1 to 2 hats too. So yeah, it was good. I don't think it cannibalized anything, because the American flag hat is still by far the best. So it's just been good.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that stuff with us. I mentioned, or actually, hold on, I got another question. So we're talking about like the measurement crisis and so on in Facebook and Meta. And at time of recording, this will be a touch older by the time the episode airs, but there's some positive changes coming back to Facebook, where we see like some attribution windows that had disappeared coming back and stuff like this. And I'm just curious, what's your take on that? Do you know more about this? It's model data, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or do you feel that in the end, the quality of those attribution metrics now is comparable to the way it was before? Or is it kind of like, an undead zombie version of what that stuff was? What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's pretty early. I'm not sure on that. What I do know, what has been exciting for me and Range in kind of the new changes is Facebook's new commerce manager, which is essentially like they're building it's kind of like Google Shopping. Like they're building in-house ecosystem for commerce, which will keep all the data on the platform, which will help attribution. Like they'll be able to do anything they want with that data. It'll be a percentage of data, because obviously not everyone's going to check out through the Facebook like Meta new commerce platform. But I've been excited about that and been testing that out. In fact, they dished Range like $25,000 to test out a campaign pushing to shops, which is what they call their commerce thing. And performance wasn't amazing, but it was free ad spend. And what has been fun that I'm testing now, I don't have any results to report yet, but they have a bunch of new audiences to bring back remarketing. Like basically nowadays you have to just put all remarketing signals into one giant pile, because you only get the last, most recent one, the farthest down the chain one from back in the day. So you have to put them all in there and just kind of have one giant remarketing campaign. Well, with the new commerce manager, they have each stage tagged again, because it's all under one roof again. It's all in the ecosystem, and you can remarket to those separately. So it's not a big enough volume yet for us and our ad spend level to really make a dent. But I could see, a 9-figure brand that's running big ad spends to you can select website and shops as your destination. I could see that being a big unlock in terms of getting some data back for that. So, and that's a whole new thing. I need to dive deeper into like designing our store. It pulls from Shopify, which is great, but I think there's a lot more merchandising for Facebook specifically that I can do, which will help that conversion and making sure all our products are dialed in there and photos and everything. But so far, that's been an exciting new meta feature anyway that I think will help that side of things too. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, makes a ton of sense. So many of these platforms trying to, increase the amount of transactions that they can own so that they can generate that first party data and pass it back to you. Definitely makes sense. One more thing before we move on from Meta, I want to ask you about Advantage Plus campaigns. Are you checking those out yet? What's your thought about it? Because I've heard pretty good things so far. Can you explain to us, like, first, is what those are, and if you've been using them, what you think about them?
Yeah. So from my experience, there was like two stages of it. They released it like way like months ago or like at the beginning of the year, which and I think it had the same name, and then they left it and then they updated it. So I do use them. How I'm using them, I guess to explain what they are, it's to me they are the Facebook equivalent of PMax on the Google side. It's just basically like toss all your creative and copy in there and let the algo do its thing, and which I think is great. I mean, obviously Google has that kind of figured out too. So yeah, I do use it at range. My process has been, again, by product category. Like I'll have an Advantage Plus campaign by hats or by wallets or even by a wallet SKU or a bag SKU. And then I will toss in, I've done both. I've done best performing creative and I've done new creative. And it's funny at least for us, what I've found to work is I have a good outsourced lifestyle photographer. And pretty much all I do is I have kind of my best performing copy from, the whole year, toss that in there. And then I just throw the lifestyle photography straight from the photographer in there for that product. Like max it out, 10 images, all the copy options, and let it rip. And then the other thing I found is I gotta leave it there for at least 5 days, if not a whole week, before even thinking about looking at the return. Because it'll be terrible looking for 5 straight days at least. And then I look back last 7 after like a week or so, and it's fine. It attributes. So I don't know what's going on there specifically, but and I don't, again, going back to that other sheet that I'm paying attention to, I'm looking at daily spend against daily rev. So in the day to day, I'm not too worried about it. When the numbers are making sense, it's just kind of like attributing campaign against campaign. It takes days to wait for the data to be there or accurate at some level. So that's kind of another nuance I find about it. But they do work. You just gotta be patient. You gotta give the algorithm a lot of options. Is kind of how I've seen it.
Yeah, that attribution lag is fascinating. It would be really interesting to know what's going on behind the scenes there. But thanks for sharing that with us. So we've been talking about marketing a bit, and maybe we can switch gears here a little bit and dive into operations. You said you're wearing that operations hat more and more. So what has it been like? We talked about supply a little bit already, but on the fulfillment side, what has it been like managing the shipping team the last year? Has that been bumpy for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the hardest part was the transition. We had a key role, like the role leadership in that shipping space moved on from range, and so I kind of stepped in. And the biggest challenge, honestly, at the beginning was culture. and not necessarily interpersonally, just more like stress. So my, something you never think about is like a D2C marketer is coming into a team and thinking about how can I de-stress this team situation. So that was kind of, priority number one for me moving to that team, which the solve for that, I mean, it's not perfect, but kind of the big things that I did to move that needle was to implement time tracking for our shippers through a batch system. Before it was like, here, ship everything. Good luck. See ya. And they were getting stressed, obviously, because there's just tons of orders. So when I came in, it was like, hey, actually do, 50, 100 at a time. Use this time tracker thing that I implement. And all you got to do is work this batch efficiently and not worry about how many orders we have, because that's ultimately on me anyway, because I'm running the marketing. So I'm going to influence how many orders we have in your queue. And that de-stressed a lot, because it was like, you just got to worry about your batch and that's it. You don't get stressed by how many orders there are. So that helped a bunch. And then also just implementing new processes and making shipping faster. I'm nowhere near perfect there, but even just like one big move for us was we were weighing each package, each box. And I had consulted with some ShipStation experts, and basically the move was, hey, instead of measuring each box, just weigh each product and auto pull the weights into ShipStation, and then write rules for the box, for like the packaging weights. And so, something like that, where now we took out a weighing step, which saves 5-10 seconds per package. I mean, that saves hours across the week, which saves tons of cash, and or we can ship that many more products out to scale. So, stuff like that also helped. But the biggest thing is making sure the team is happy, because when the team is happy, they work efficiently and they can work, they can have quick turnaround times over a long period of time, and they don't burn out. And like, obviously we want people to be happy. So that's just a measure on its own to be watching. So,
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really interesting. And you mentioned that you kind of have this direct connection between, okay, we've got this capacity limit on the one hand, and then we've got this marketing faucet on the other hand. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how do you regulate the interplay between marketing and operations, and are there other ways where you're kind of seeing this connection between marketing and operations?
yeah. Well, there's a third piece in there that like I need to work with my production team, like leads, to make sure that we can make the stuff that I sell. So there's like, it's kind of marketing, production, logistics in my mind. But I mean, it's what I like about having eyes on both teams is, especially like going into the busy season here, it's a matter of like, hey, let's measure. I'm going to put the throttle down in ads, crank the orders, make it so you can never, like, our team is never going to be able to ship all the orders from that day in that day, but let's see how many we get and measure that for a few days. And then I kind of get a rate of this based on this team size or this staff schedule. This is our order volume that we can hit reliably. And then on my marketing side, I can decide, well, how many days in the hole do I want to get? If I want to do that, this is how many orders I can sell in a day to keep pace with shipping. So how do I want to manage that with amongst like Christmas coming up and like getting people orders on time? So stuff like that is really fun. And then the other side of it is that their speed, their efficiency, and production speed and efficiency affect COGS cost, because I bring that in to the COGS calculations. So if either side improves, that margin goes up, and my CAC, my break even ROAS, that gets that much easier to manage, or at least like the ROAS would go down, so I can either scale or be more profitable, kind of a thing. So that's another fun element of it, that like, oh, I could spend an hour making a great ad, that hits, a 2-2 and is amazing, or I could spend an hour working with the production team and saving us, 30 minutes on our best selling product. And that saves us, 10x the dollars on that side. So there's a lot of fun things in how those two mix together in terms of just finding the best efficiency for the whole business.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like the way that you can come at that from both sides there, and think about sort of this more people first, operational efficiency first way, or this marketing reach and effectiveness side. It's really interesting there. Now, this is one I find interesting. Do you consider strategic brand planning as an operational responsibility or a marketing responsibility, and why?
So here's how I see it. At least for Range. And again, with the goals being different, like we're aiming for long term, right? So at this point, how our like brand to operations flow works for us is kind of the top of the pyramid, like C-suite. Like we kind of decide as a brand what's our brand direction in XYZ. Like what's our promotional strategy here? What's our next 3 months look like? What are we trying to do? That gets decided at that level. Then usually it gets passed to marketing, which is me again, but it's more of okay, how is this going to work? What codes do we need? What emails do we need? What graphics do we need? How are we looking with just like in the advertising side of things? Gets passed to that, because a lot of times like we want to make sure that it's doable from a customer experience standpoint before we even touch production. So that would be the next move, is like, okay, so we get the brand direction passed to marketing. Marketing goes, yep, this is doable. We'll be able to do emails, flows, codes, whatever, it'll work. Now let's go to ops. Let's go to production. Let's make sure we have the products we need. The pacing's on. Let's notify the production team, like, hey, this is going to be a big sale. You might want to build up some stock in this, or this is going to go out quick. And then they can also pass back like projections based on what marketing wants to do. So that's kind of the chain, is like top and then marketing and then ops. And if all those things check out, then we're good to go. So yeah, kind of all of it. I mean, they're both in both, I guess, is the short answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to backtrack a little bit. Earlier, you dropped this kind of keyword in there. I heard you mention wholesale. So maybe you could help us understand what's going on with Range in terms of their wholesale strategy versus their direct-to-consumer strategy. How do you view this? How significant is wholesale for the business?
Yeah. Wholesale is huge, actually, like bigger than D2C for us. Like it's like, how do you give like rough percentages? We're probably 45% wholesale and like, 40% D2C and like 5% retail, kind of a thing. Like we have our own retail store here. But wholesale is huge. And for us, wholesale is broken up into two categories, that maybe three categories. So it'd be like essentially fair is a thing by itself, a marketplace for wholesalers, if you're not familiar, that we are on. And then we have our own wholesale relationships outside of Fair. Both of those are boutiques, they're stores. They are buying stock and reselling. They're buying at a wholesale price and reselling. And we have like Fair is usually smaller boutiques with smaller orders. And then outside of Fair, we have bigger box stores with multiple locations that we're servicing larger POs, pallets, stuff like that. So we have that. And then we have a whole other half of wholesale, which is custom, which is pretty much the majority is custom hats. So we'll stamp company logos into our leather on our hats. And that can be also reselling, like if there's a brewery that gets their stuff stamped into a hat, they'll resell that. Or we have some bigger name brands that we have their logo stamped into, and even have like totally custom patch sizes and stuff. But then we also have like lawn care businesses that'll buy that's their uniform. They'll buy a bunch of hats for the team.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's, it's a big category, and it's multifaceted, obviously, but it's been huge. And those, that whole side is treated so differently than the D2C side in terms of customer relationship. It's B2B. It's high repeat purchase rate, but like very much prioritizing the experience, continuing to be, what can we do to add, value to your store? You're putting our products in your store. How can we help you move the needle, like both with resell, like actually the selling rate, but also like the merchandising and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's a totally different animal, but it's a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly merchandising was just kind of jumping right to the front of my brain there. And I'm not really that familiar with these wholesaler marketplaces like Fair that you mentioned. I mean, how stable are kind of is the matchmaking that occurs over a marketplace like that? Is that something that's changing quite a bit? Because it feels like it could create some kind of brand challenges or some merchandising challenges, like because you maybe don't have as durable of a relationship over time. I'm just guessing that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Fair is more like, it's just kind of like another online marketplace. You can think of it like instead of a one-off customer coming to Range and looking on the site and buying one thing, it's like a wholesale store boutique is going to go to Fair and fill up their whole store inside of Fair. So they're like, I'm going to grab,
Mhm.
8 SKUs of hats and 4 SKUs of wallets from Range. I'm going to go over here and get, 5 hoodies and 6 colors in 4 sizes of t-shirts from this brand. I'm going to head over here and get these keychains. Like they're shopping all at once. And so the advantage to Fair for us is the brand discovery. Like it's a generation tool for us, like that Fair is pushing, and we get access to that market that's already there. Similar to, brands going to Amazon, like you get access to another pool of customers that are there.
Yeah.
But the downside is Fair takes huge fees. They take 25% off the top of the first sale, non-direct, like through the platform, and then they take 15 off all recurring. So it's a huge margin hit, which for us, we've been able to build in a lot of margin to our products in the last year, and we've changed prices and updated processes. So it hasn't been as big, but it's definitely a challenge at scale when, the fees are getting into the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands on just the fees for the orders themselves. But, it's like, is the fee cost worth the acquisition that we
Yeah.
get, is kind of the thought there.
I mean, just a couple follow-ups on that. So you're able to then pass that customer data back into your CRM, and then they're in your kind of, you can maybe own their LTV through email and stuff like that.
I think we can. Like Fair tries to keep everything in the Fair platform. We do everything inside. So like you have a messenger inside the platform. You have a email marketing tool inside the platform. So everything's pretty consolidated in that one house. But yeah, and it's a careful balance, right? Like you want to lean into what Fair does well, which is bringing new stores to itself. But then, yeah, what the challenge is then, well, what do we just continue to develop this relationship on here? We have had not a majority, but a good chunk of brands will message us and be like, hey, can we come off of Fair? Because we want direct rep, essentially, is their main, like, they have to work through Fair to work through us.
Mm-hmm.
And they want, a lot of the brands that come off of Fair want to talk to us specifically more about that merchandising side. Like, hey, our customers love your product. What more can we do? Are there custom products we can make and that we could buy from you for our stores? Can we move the needle on like adding displays or, stuff like that? So that's kind of where we see the downside. But yeah, I mean, that's like, what we're talking about is totally top of mind, and I'm in the middle of figuring that out, like currently, on what the relationship transition looks like there.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I mean recency rules. I mean, hold on. I ask you one more kind of noob question. Hopefully, if I have the question, other people have the question too. So please excuse me. But like, when we're talking about your wholesale relationships at large, how does that all feed back to customer service? Are you kind of offboarding customer service to the wholesaler, or is it splash back to you guys?
So I'd say the quick answer is it ends up back with us at some point. I've got one of my team members is just like, that's their whole thing, is managing fair. And so you're managing the messages through there, you're managing all the orders, you're sending that out. So it's we do it inside the platform. I haven't passed it. I wonder if there is a way to pass it into Gorgeous, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, because we do everything through Gorgeous on the D2C side for CX. So there might be a way, but it kind of goes back to that whole, like, there's separate customer experiences, and so the expectations are different. And so we have like the customer service side on D2C is one thing, and then we have kind of a different set of macros and not scripts, but like tailorable script starting places for wholesale, which are different than D2C. But it's all managed through Fair. And then the ones that are off of Fair, we just have like email or something less official, which we're working through now, like I said.
Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing that too. And I'm just looking at time. I think we're running a little tight, so let's wrap it up. I just want to ask you. Let me ask you two more things, okay? So, what's next in digital marketing from your standpoint? Like, what trends are you watching right now? Is there anything that you feel is underhyped or overhyped? Either way, I'm happy to hear both.
Yeah. I'd probably give a hot take on this, which is I honestly don't pay attention to trends. I know, like, right now, like, TikTok's big and like Meta is like old school, and who even touches SEO anymore? What even is that? Who knows? But for me, like, I always come back to marketing fundamentals. Like, what are your core customers? What are your best customers? What's the demographic, psychographics of them? And then where are they? So, like, for range, it's not kids. So TikTok is not the thing for range. Like, we don't, it's Facebook. Our market is on Facebook. They're older. They have more money. Their kids are grown or out of there, or like they have like youngish kids. It's families. It's like, people that have been in careers for a while. Like, this is all kind of just loose gut psychographics, but that's why Facebook and Instagram have worked so well for range, because it's older. If you have like a skincare brand that's like totally new and fresh and modern, and you have all the cool new stuff, I could totally see how TikTok is gonna be your thing, or YouTube, or like any of the newer search engines that people, like, kids aren't going to Google anymore. They're going to YouTube. They're going to TikTok. So I can totally see how that works. So I think I would answer that question first, which is like, well, who are your best customers, and then where are they going to be, and go there and capitalize on that. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Then before I let you go, I just want to ask if there's any like projects, companies, or people you want to shout out, in addition to range, of course.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, there's so many, like, marketing Twitter is amazing. Yeah, I mean, I guess like some that come to mind that I've talked to recently. I have the advantage of being able to hop on calls with some friends a lot, which, like, to name a few, Connor Lane, he's a freelancer. He might have something big in the works, which I'm excited about. Like Chris McCoolin from Coolin, Dan Gray from Cotton, Zach Duncan, he's a freelancer. He was at Motif for a while. Jeremiah from No, he's a good friend of mine. He's in Denver. I'm 2 hours north of Denver, so we hang out occasionally. And I would say go to Mentor Pass too. If you don't know what Mentor Pass is, go there. I've been loving that. Getting access to tactical experts in things. Like, I talked to Eli from Jones Road and Cody from Jones Road, both for different things. Like, Eli helps me dial in Gorgeous to save a ton of time. And Cody gave me like really in-depth kind of buying ideas to get out of my own head. So that's been really fun. So yeah, it's a few random ones, but just hit me up on Twitter and go through my follow list. Every single one of them is great. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm following Eli and Cody, and then I'll check out some of those other people you mentioned as well. And where can we find you on Twitter, by the way?
Yeah, Tim_Aton, ATON there. Yeah, I mean, who knows what I'm talking about? I got everything from business to kids, so and everything in between. But yeah, head there. And then range, if you want some other stuff, it's not for everybody, but if you're into that, use code Tim's friend without the apostrophe for 15% off. Although depending on time of year, you might find that on the site anyway here in a minute for holidays, but you always got the Tim's friend in your pocket if you want.
Yeah, maybe we're a week out from Black Friday at time of recording, so maybe some promos coming up. Well, cool. Thanks for letting me pick your brain so much. I really appreciate that. Really generous with your time. And yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Growing E-commerce. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider sharing it with coworkers, friends, or within your professional network. We really appreciate it. This podcast is produced by Smarter E-commerce. To learn more, visit smarter-ecommerce.com.